Hi, in this video we're going to be looking at how we can compare objects of the same type with the exact same values, right? So if you look at the comment here, I have two objects, right, and they're of type position, right, and they have the exact same values of 0 and 0, right? So let's demonstrate this with an example. We're going to say class. We're going to first create a class. I'm going to call it position, and we're going to create instance variables x and y, and then we're going to use a constructor to initialize them. Okay, now we also need a way to get these values, right? So we're gonna say public int, let's say x, capital letter X, get return the small letter x. Okay, so this is a getter for this x value, for this small x value. As you can see, we're returning this small value, but we're using the method signature with the capital letter X. But if this is confusing for you, you can just say get x. That is also okay, right? Okay, but we're gonna just give it an x for simplicity, and then and then we create the same for y as well, right? Same thing for y. We are returning y. Okay, so now that we have the class, let's create the objects for this class. So we're gonna say position a equals new position 0 and 0, position b equals new position 0 and 0, right? And then we compare these positions. So a equals b, right? So this line we are checking if two objects are equal. Okay, so now we're going to check if the two objects are equal. Let's print this then. As you can see, we're getting a false, right? This means that these two objects are not equal. Now we generally don't want this, right? This is technically incorrect for us, since we were looking at the values, and the values are saying that this is the exact same position. This is position 0 and 0, and this is also position 0 and 0. So therefore this should be true. They should be the same. So this should be true, right? So let's fix this then. Let's fix this. We're gonna go to the class again, to the position class that we created, and then we're gonna override the method. It's gonna public override bool equals, right? So we're going to override this method. This is the same method we used here to compare these objects. If you can see clearly, this is it, equals, right? So we're overriding this method's functionality, right, to our own liking. So one, we need to check if the object that we're comparing is not null, right? And if it is null, we return false, right? So we're checking if the object is null. If the object is null, we'll return false. And now we need to go ahead and check if the object that we are comparing right? Its type is the same, right? So this line checks this. Now if you can see here, object A is of type position and object B is also of type position. So these two objects are of the same type. So this is what the line is checking here, if the two objects are of the same type. And if that is true, then we want to create an instance variable of position. We're going to call it position equals object as position, right? Now since we have this equal sign here, which means that this position may be nullable, right? And then we must return position dot, remember that X that we created, that capital letter X, now we're getting it and we're going to compare it with this small letter x. And then we're also going to do the same for y. So we're going to say and position dot y, capital letter Y, is equals to this dot x, right? So here we can say this is nullable also. Okay, and then finally, if these statements are executed, we then return false, right? So what is happening here? We're gonna check if the object is null, right? If it is null, then we return false. Otherwise, we're gonna check if the objects are of the same type, and if that's true, we're gonna then check the values, right? The values of the objects. If values of the objects is the same for x and y, right? And then whatever we get here as a result will be returned. Otherwise, we just return false, right? So now, with that, we're gonna go and run the program again. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting true now. This is now actually true, right? Which is great. Now this yellow here just means, what did we do here? Position overrides object, but does not override object.getHashCode. Okay, so even though this is working, it's generally a good practice to also override getHashCode after overriding equals. So we need to override this method as well. Public int get, public override int getHashCode, right? And then here we need to return a constant. We're going to say prime, say 83, so int constant is 1, and then we can just say unchecked and say constant equals to constant times prime plus x dot getHashCode. Also saying constant equals constant times prime plus y dot get hash constant, and then finally we remove this and return constant. And now when we run the code again, we get true, right? And the yellow warning is gone. So yeah, that's it. That's how you compare two objects of the same values. We need to override equals and the getHashCode.